Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those at Century 2, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representative to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room or the GoToMeeting comments box. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to district court.
Okay. Once again, we're meeting with protocols in place to keep everybody as safe and healthy as possible, which means we will have people calling in from various locations. I want to make sure, and we will have some technological problems from time to time. That's the first time we've had that kind of echoing, but we will do everything we can to get that taken care of. Okay.
Oh, it can't be me.
Okay. I want to make sure where we're at in terms of who is present for this meeting. Mr. Florence is not going to be involved with this meeting either here directly or remotely. Is Mr. Bill Johnson? Bill, are you?
I'm here.
You're there? Okay. And then
Yep.
Mr. Foster is not here in the auditorium. Is Dave, are you out there someplace listening in, or you're still coming? We'll wait and see on Mr. Foster on how that comes about. Let's go ahead and start with the agenda. The first item that we need to take care of is approval of the meeting for June the 4th, 2020. My records show that Mr. Blick and Ms. Gross were absent from that meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Oh, second.
Mr. Joe Johnson made a motion. Ms. Miles made the second. Any questions or comments about those minutes? If not, let's have a roll call vote for that.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Gross? I know you were absent, but you abstained. Commissioner Dexler?
Yes.
Mr. Dewell?
Yes.
Mr. Blick? Mr. Nix?
Yes.
Bill Johnson?
Yes.
Joe Johnson?
Yes.
Cindy Miles?
Yes.
Rob Hartman?
Okay, that's a little cumbersome, but I think it's one way to make sure we get a hold of everybody. So we will, for now, we will go through the process of doing a roll call vote on most of our recommendations today. The first items we will do, see if we can take anything by consent. We will consider the subdivision committee recommendations. Agenda item 2.1 is a one-step final plat, Dugan West Commercial, second edition, located off of West Kellogg Drive and south 135th Street West. Is there anybody on the commission that wish to hear that item? I'm seeing none. Is there anybody at Century 2 that wishes to hear that item? I'm hearing nothing from Century 2. Is there anybody online from another device that wishes to hear that item? We will take agenda item 2.1 by consent. Agenda item 2.2, a one-step final plat, Schulte Johnson, second edition, near West 31st Street South and South Mays Road. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item? Seeing, is there anybody at Century 2 wish to hear that item?
No.
Okay, is there anybody from another device that wishes to hear that item? Hearing none, we will take agenda item 2.2 by consent. Agenda item 2.3, a one-step final plat, Mernita, second edition, near Central Avenue and North 127th Street East. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item? Seeing none, is there anybody at Century 2 wish to hear that item?
Only the agent if there are questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody online or from another device that wish to hear the agenda item 2.3? Hearing none, but we'll take that by consent.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve these three items. I do have one request, though, if it's possible. When we have future plats that are asking for our approval, I know they've been through the subdivision committee, but it's a lot easier if we could have a copy of the plat. Doesn't need to be a full-size copy, but if we could have a copy of the plat included in the cases so that we can see what all of the items that are needing to be approved, we can see what they actually are on the plat. But with that,
We have a motion. Is there a second to that
Second.
motion? Say a motion by Mr. Green, second by Mr. Dool. Any further questions on those items? We will take that by a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. And what is the unanimous? Is that we counted
11-0.
11-0, and we have Mr. Foster here, so that'll start making it 12-0. Okay. Hello, David.
Penalty box.
Public hearing vacation items. The first item has been deferred. Agenda item 3.1 is deferred indefinitely. Agenda item, whoops. Okay, I've got another that says 3.1, but I've got a vacation 2020-00015, a city vacation of a portion of a platted utility easement near West Maple Street and the South Ridge Road. Is there anybody on the commission wish to hear that item?
I just have a question on that.
Have a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Oh, no,
Ned.
I'm sorry. On 3.1, never mind.
Oh, okay. Is there anybody at Century 2 wish to hear that vacation item?
No.
Is there anybody from another device wish to hear that vacation item? Seeing none, we will take that by consent. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Green and a second by Ms. Miles. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Is that 12-0? Now that Mr. Foster is here?
That might is.
12-0. Public hearing items. Agenda item 4.1 has been deferred from May the 21st as a county conditional use to expand existing Midwest Dog Center near North 215th Street West and West 29th Street North. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item? We will hear that item. Agenda item 4.2, conditional use for an accessory apartment at 11501 East 75th Street South. Anybody in the commission wish to hear that item? Seeing none, is there anybody at Century 2 wish to hear that item?
No.
Is there anybody from another device listening in wish to hear that conditional use item? Hearing none, we will take agenda item 4.2 by consent. Agenda item 4.3, a conditional use to allow vehicle sales outdoor on property zoned like commercial, limited commercial. That's 3149 South Old Lawrence Road. Anybody in the commission wish to hear that item? Seeing none, is there anybody at Century 2 wish to hear that item?
No.
Is there anybody online from another device wish to hear that item? Seeing none, we will take that by consent. Mr. Kaplan, I'm assuming that you're speaking for the applicant on that one?
No need for me to speak, Mr. Chairman, if it's a consent item.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Agenda item 4.4, conditional use to allow for minor utility near East 29th Street North and North Greenwich Road. Anybody in the commission wish to hear that item? Seeing none, is there anybody at Century 2 wish to hear that item?
No.
Is there anybody from another device listening in that wish to hear that conditional use item? Hearing none, we will take agenda item 4.2 by consent. Agenda item 4.5 has got a recommendation for denial, so we will hear agenda item 4.5. Agenda item 4.6 is a city CUP to create Harbor Isle commercial near North Meridian Avenue and West 100 I-235 highway. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item? We will hear agenda item 4.6. Agenda item 4.7 is a city CUP number 2 to Walmer Plaza Shopping Center. This is located near West 37th Street North and North Meridian Avenue. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item? Seeing none, is there anybody at Century 2 wish to hear that item?
No.
Is there anybody from another device listening in that would like to hear that agenda item? Hearing none, we will take agenda item 4.7 by consent. Agenda item 4.8, the city zone change from SF5 single family to TF3 two-family residential at 792 North Kesler. Anybody on the commission we will hear that item. Agenda item 4.9, city zone change from SF5 family residential to office warehouse at 5398 South Hydraulic. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item? We will hear agenda item 4.9.
You jumped ahead on 4.8.
Okay? We
They're
had
going to hear
4.8.
that.
4.8, we've got a request to hear, so we will hear agenda item 4.8.
Okay.
And we will hear agenda item 4.9, just so we're all on the same page. Moving on to see about agenda item 4.10. City zone change from SF5 limited to limited commercial at 5130 North Meridian Avenue. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item? Seeing none. Anybody at Century 2 wish to hear agenda item 4.10?
No.
Is there anybody from another device listening in like to hear agenda item 4.10, a zone change from SF5 to limited commercial? Hearing none, we will take agenda item 4.10 by consent. Agenda item 4.11, a city zone change from SF5 single family to TF3 two-family residential located near North Meridian Avenue and West 53rd Street North. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item? Seeing none, is there anybody at Century 2 wish to hear that item?
No.
Okay. Is there anybody from another device listening in wish to hear agenda item 4.11? Seeing none, we will take that by consent. Agenda item 4.12, county zone change from SF20, single-family residential to allow for creation of a lot less than 2 acres, located at 13439 East MacArthur Avenue. Anybody on the commission wish to hear that item? Seeing none, is there anybody at Century 2 wish to hear that item?
Only the agent if there are questions.
Thank you. Is there anybody online from another device listening in like to hear that item?
Yes, I would like to hear it.
Okay, state your name, please.
I'm Dennis Morris.
Okay, Dennis, we will hear that item. Just hang on, it may be a little bit before we get there, but we will hear that item. Okay, is there a motion on, here, 4.2, or let's see, to take by consent, agenda item 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.7, 4.8. No, excuse me, 4.7. We will hear 4.8, 4.10, 4.11. And motion by Mr. Hartman, second by Mr. Joe Johnson. Any questions on which ones we're taking by consent? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously, 12-0. There are no other agenda items, so we go back to
4.1.
4.1 is our first item. Is that correct, Scott? Yep. Is that where we're all at?
Yes.
Okay, Kathy, you have the floor.
Yes, this is the conditional use. Can you get me to the, go to the next slide, please? This is a conditional use for an existing dog boarding breeding kennel at 22215 West 29th Street North. The applicant is, I saw her up there on the screen a few minutes ago, so she is with us. This was heard by the District 3 Advisory Board, the County Commission Advisory Board, and there were a lot of suggestions that came out of that.
Step close to the mic.
I'm hearing a lot of feedback from, well, it seems to be me. You have a memo that is dated June 2nd, and that reflects some of the discussion that was had at the CAB 3 meeting and discussion with the applicants. So what they are requesting, the conditional uses, because this has been in operation since 2013, this existing dog kennel breeding daycare center. They are requesting, they wanted to initially expand the facility there, but too many dogs, that was a big issue with the neighbors. They have another site over on 247th Street, and they are asking with condition 2, basically they're operating under the same 2013-12, but they want condition 2 to be changed to the specifics that are in your memo that allow the number of dogs to be 60 during the day, and that includes the 12 dogs that would be allowed to be boarded. No more than, in a specific period, no more than 40 dogs boarded during holiday seasons, like when people are vacationing, school, that associated with school breaks or holidays. The dogs can be outside from 6:30 a.m. to sunset. No more than 25 dogs allowed in the large area and 10 in the small area at any one time. Training classes, 2 allowed per week. One's a puppy class, one's an adult class. And that the days of those operations may switch depending on weather, daylight saving time, that kind of deal. They want Saturday classes. They want 2, and they may be held consecutively, but there has to be at least 30 minutes between in order that there not be any traffic backup on 29th Street. Again, there's a reference to daylight saving time ending sooner than, the hours where it gets dark at night. And they do have some items for sale that are available to the people using the facility, not just a general retail where I could just, who doesn't have a dog, could just go in and buy something. And then there's a sunset condition that they will be able to operate under these conditions until December 31st of 2022. Pardon me, I misspoke. Wait a
packet
minute,
says
wait a
21.
minute. No, that's right, I'm sorry, 2021. That's correct in the report. It's getting close to 2021 already. And so that is to allow them the time to get the new facility on 247th Street built so that they can expand their operations with outdoor dog runs and that type of thing. And then, let's see, the boarding not exceed 12 adults, and that's the adult dogs, that's considered to be 6 months or older. And then the normal condition, if the zoning administrator finds there is a violation, they can void the conditional use. I think that's pretty much covers it, and I will stand for any, I tell you what, will you run through the slides, Jim? The aerial, it's out in the county on rural residential. This is their existing site plan, that wouldn't change. This is the back of the existing building. The existing outdoor pen, large pen on the left and the small pen in the rear. Another view of that. This is looking toward 29th Street. You can see, what you don't see there is there's parking on the right-hand side in front of the building where people check in their dogs. And this is looking east from the site. You can see I'm sorry, I can't point there. You can see the trees that they've planted for screening. That was done back in 2013. Next. And this is looking west. Again, the trees for screening. And I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Kathy? Mr. Foster?
Kathy, I'm looking at condition number 2, item 2, the last sentence says, this condition excludes the group class dogs, the owner's personal dogs, breeding dogs, and puppies from litters. Sentence before that says doggy daycare will be reduced so as not to exceed the maximum of 60 dogs per day allowed. Is that 60 dogs plus all these exclusions, or 60 is the max?
Yeah, it's the 60 plus the exclusion, because the group class dogs will be in the evenings, and then the owner has his own personal animals, and the puppies, they generally have maybe 3 litters at a time of, 3 to 6 puppies. So those would be allowed.
Above and beyond the 60,
Yeah, above and
right?
beyond the 60.
Second question is on condition 13, item number 1 there, it references revert to the conditions established by conditional case 213-12.
Right,
Was that 12 dogs at that time?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Mr. Blick?
Question I have is, on the site
Okay,
map that.
does he, you gotta go to the microphone. Sorry.
The site map that's provided, it looks like on the back of the document, it says 34 feet from the, looks like the east side of the structure to the property line. And then, but it doesn't, it shows 160 feet from, it looks like the furthest west, all the way to the property line of the neighbor. When I was looking through Google Earth, it actually looks like they have another structure that is on the east side that's not on the site plan. Is that, I didn't see it on here, so I didn't know if we could look, if there was a shot that actually showed that. There's another structure that's on the east side of it.
What I'm seeing here, Jim, can you point to the, yes, that is an existing, open, well, it's a covered space where they keep a boat. And so you're seeing something in addition to that?
Yes, correct.
Go back to the pictures, Jim, and let me see if there was anything. Okay, so if you look up to the right, there's a little, you can see another roof line. That's the addition that has the garage, the open-ended garage in it. Whoop.
Technology is great.
When it works.
That's right.
Okay, go on. I don't know if I have a picture of that from the front. Keep going. Again. No, again. No, I didn't get that from the front side of the...
So, seeing that actually makes it, instead of 34, because they're showing the far east side of that structure being a straight structure, it actually even comes out even further than the 34 that's provided. Is that correct?
Yes, if that structure is there, then they would have had to, they'd have to be, I think it's 6 feet off the interior property line.
The most, yeah, the closest that
The-
they would be
be
is 6
6
feet.
feet.
Okay, I just want to make sure because this site plan is
Okay.
actually wrong,
Okay,
if that's the case.
well then, we will, before we do the conditional permit, we'll make sure we have the corrected site plan.
Any additional questions for Kathy? Nothing from here. Is the agent or applicant, are they at Century 2 or are they at another device? They will have 10 minutes.
Lanisa,
Yes.
can
you
there
hear
she is.
me?
We're ready for you to make comments. Where is she?
So when he was talking about that, thing that was like 6 feet, that additional thing, it's just a lean-to for our camper. And the building does line up with it. And then there's the fences in the back. So it does line up, from there. I do have, on that conditional number 2, and then I was going to talk to you too about it, Kathy. We would also like to, with that holidays and stuff like that, to ask for, like on the weekends, to have the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, having the 50 dogs there too, just to protect ourselves and make sure, we don't go over or anything like that. We generally have the average of 40.
And so that's for
but-
boarding? That's for the
Pardon?
boarding?
Yeah, just for boarding, yes,
Okay.
yes. Yes.
Okay, is there anything else you want to add to your?
Now, I mean, if anybody has any questions for me, we've kind of
Any,
gone over and talked with this with the neighbors and things like that, and this is an agreement that we've all had come up with. We are working on getting our building built over there, so that's the reason why we gave it that long of a time, just so we can get our stuffs, organized and get it all over there. It probably won't take us that long, but
with everything's going on in this world right now. It's just we wanted to give ourselves enough time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody from the commission have a question for the applicant?
Okay.
Mr. Green?
So from what I'm seeing is you're requesting to have the number of boarded dogs to go from 12 to 40?
That is correct, yes.
And when you say boarding, is that overnight boarding, or is that?
Yeah, that'll be the
daycare?
dogs. Yeah, that'll be the dogs who stay the night. Yes.
And I know you have indoor training areas and outdoor training areas. Where do the dogs stay overnight? In the indoor training area?
Yeah, they're in an indoor facility. Yes, it's heated and aired.
Do they have individual pens in there? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. They all have individual pens. Yes. There's the one right there. Sorry, I can't point to it, but they have indoor, outdoors. But everybody stays inside at night. There's no dogs that are staying outside. They're all indoors. It's insulated and stuff, so yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Blick?
Oh, I do have a question. So, not a question, but just to kind of explain the 40 dogs. You know, we have a lot of families that have 2 dogs, 3 dogs. The kennels are a nice size that you can accommodate 2 dogs and 3 dogs in each kennel. So that's why sometimes the numbers, I just want to do the 50 just to protect ourselves and make sure that, you know, we don't go over the number.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blick has a question for you.
Question I have
Sure.
is, on the south side of that building, on Google Earth, it shows, it looks like there's another pin. Actually, it looks like 2 pins on the south side of that building, but it's not showing it on your site plan. So I just wanted to verify, are those 2 pins there, or are they all the pins on the west side of the building, the outdoor pins?
So there are 2 pins. The one that is farthest to the east that's where our breeding dogs are at right now. So they don't, so they have their own little area. No boarding dogs are in there or anything like that. It's our own personal dogs that are right there. And then that pin that would be the smaller pin, that's used for the boarding dogs and doggy daycare.
Okay, great. That's why I was wondering, because it's not showing it on your site plan, the 2 additional
Yeah.
pins outside of that building.
Okay, I'm sorry that I didn't put that on there.
And the reason why I asked that question, because it does make a difference. If it looks like most of the noise would be on that west side where those pins are, but now that's shown when we include those other 2 pins on the south, then it kind of makes it omnidirectional all over the place. So.
Right, so they have their own little area in there, and we put them up if they're at, you know, making noise and stuff like that, then they'll go inside the building.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions, Ms. Miles?
Yes, I'd just like to ask, so it appears that when you had the original conditional use that you were in violation of that on inspection, and so that's why you've come back to expand. I just want to make sure that if we were to approve this, that this is something then you would be able to stay in compliance with.
Yes, and that's the reason why I have kind of upped the number just to protect myself. We are maxed out what we have right now. I mean, I can't add anything. I can't with dogs or anything like that. And so that's the reason why the number is kind of high we just want to protect ourselves, but we'll probably never get to that number. Doggy daycare keeps growing all the time. And sometimes people just show up, and so it's another reason why. Or someone might call and want to have a grooming done, and, you know, that's included in my numbers. Or, Hank might have a private lesson, and a lot of times people do 2 dogs, and, with the private lesson. So it's just, so I just never know what's going to happen that day. So that's why the number is high.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, we will open it up for other speakers. Is there anybody in Century 2 who wishes to speak on this item?
We built that walls down there, called T-wall.
Who's at Century 2? Mary?
No, it's Stephen Banks.
Stephen, is there anybody there at Century 2 who wishes to speak on this item?
So he pulled it up on the Google and Kesler Jones. We
Again, technology.
it's about a $25 million project. But I was gonna give it to.
Stephen, is there anybody there at Century 2 that wishes to speak on this item?
No one here.
Is there anybody from another device wish to speak on this item?
I'm gonna give it to you right now.
I'm hearing none. I'll bring it back to the commission. Not sure where that noise is coming from, but we'll just work over the top of it. I guess the question that I have is the conditions that were on the note that was dated June the 2nd, that comes in agreement with as a result of the DAB?
It's going back to the DAB. This comes as a result of a conversation between the applicant and their immediate neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Bring it back to the board for discussion or action.
I would move that we approve the request and to up on condition number 2, to allow items 1 and items 2 from the memo that we received with that approval.
We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Joe Johnson.
Joe Johnson. Does that include the number of 50 that she had on?
Yes.
That for the special holidays and special
Yes.
conditions? Okay.
I would like to add there that we will need to submit a new site plan that shows some of those things that Commissioner Blick mentioned.
Okay, that will be required then. Very good. Any additional questions? Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes?
Mr. Green,
Aye.
Gross,
Aye.
Kesler,
Yes.
Dooley,
Yes.
Lick. Yes. Nix,
Yes.
Foster,
Yeah.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Joe Johnson. Yes. Miles,
Yes.
Hartman.
12, passes 12-0. Okay. Okay, looks like the next agenda item is agenda item 4.5.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Philip Zievenbergen on behalf of Matt Williams with planning staff. The applicant for this case is requesting a conditional use to allow outdoor vehicle and equipment sales on property zoned limited commercial located on the southeast corner of North Ridge Road and West 13th Street North. As I mentioned before, the subject property is zoned LC limited commercial and is occupied currently by an existing gas station. The proposed site plan, if you want to move to that, Jim, the site plan provided shows the existing store and gas pumps remaining while they also showing 5 parking stalls on the northeast of the store to be used for auto sales. So that would be on the 13th Street side of the gas station and not the Ridge Road side. The other remaining 5 parking stalls on the side for Ridge Road would be there for the gas station parking. A 6-foot wooden fence currently exists along the eastern and southern property lines where it butts up against residential properties. The site has existing drives off of Ridge Road and 13th Street. The Unified Zoning Code permits outdoor vehicle and equipment sales as a conditional use in the LC zoning district. It has supplemental use regulations found in section 3D6X They're provided to you in your staff report. In general, it talks about it being located on a major street, that visual screening would be required when abutting residential zoning districts to help protect those areas. All parking and outdoor storage and display areas will be paved with an approved surface that's outlined in the zoning code. The lighting will be in compliance with the zoning code as well. There will be no string or searchlights to be permitted. Noise levels will have to be in compliance with noise compatibility standards. There will be no outdoor speakers or amplification systems permitted. There can be no repair work conducted except in an enclosed building, provided that no body or fender work is done at all on the property. Only those signs permitted in the LC district are permitted, except for no portable, flashing, moving, or off-site signs. No signs that would be streamers, banners, pennants, or pinwheels, or commercial flags or similar devices would be permitted. And there'd be no use of an elevated platform in which to display vehicles. If you want to go to the zoning map, properties to the north are zoned LC and SF20 and are athletic fields. Properties to the south and east are zoned SF5 and are single-family residential. Properties to the west across Ridge Road are zoned LC, limited commercial, and SF5, single-family. Those sites are developed as a liquor store and single-family residences. There's no case history on this site, at least within the last 20 years. The comprehensive plan identifies this area as suitable for residential. However, this site has been operated commercially for some time. Staff recommendation is for denial on this. Based on its location, staff believes that this would just be an inappropriate location for used vehicle sales. However, if the Planning Commission does feel it is an appropriate use, we do list some conditions for approval for you to consider. One, a revised site plan drawn to scale and addressing the conditions of approval would be submitted to planning for approval prior to the issuance of occupancy, but no more than 30 days after approval of the conditional use. All requirements of the supplemental use regulations in the zoning code for outdoor vehicle sales and equipment sales would have to be met. There'd be no outdoor storage or salvage vehicles or parts would be permitted in association with this use. The site would be developed in conformance to the approved site plan. All improvements would need to be shown on the site plan and completed prior to the operation of selling vehicles. And that the revised site plan confirm that there is adequate parking for all uses. The site plan should be developed and operate in compliance with federal, state, and local regulations, and then our standard, if the zoning administrator finds that it is in violation of any of these, that it can be null and void at any time. Other things to consider, the property is zoned limited commercial and has been used at a convenience store and gas station. The property is suitable for commercial uses for which it has been restricted. Extent to which the removal of these will detrimentally affect neighboring properties. The proposed conditional use will have vehicle sales on the site in addition to the existing gas station. This is a relatively small lot, and the introduction of outdoor vehicle sales is not considered viable for the subject property. The nature of how this property is presently developed, coupled with the lack of visibility of the property until the intersection of 13th and Ridge, creates a condition that is not conducive for the proposed use without the operator moving the vehicles closer to the street or significantly increasing the signage or other steps designated to acknowledge that the sales lot business is located on the property. None of these situations would comply with the ordinances, rules, and regulations of the city and could result in additional enforcement issues. The potential of problems with the requested use at this location because of the conditions existing with the small size of the subject lot warrant a recommendation of denial. The property is currently operating as a gas station and has not been vacant, and that use can continue. Relative gain to public health, safety, and welfare compared to the loss in value of a hardship imposed. The potential impacts of the attempting to establish a car lot sale or car sales lot at this location have been previously stated. Allowing the sales lot could result in harms to the public health, safety, and welfare because of the small size of the lot and potential need of an operator to such a business to violate the local laws governing such an activity, and an ability to make that use successful on the lot Given the fact that the property is being used as an existing convenience store with gas pumps indicates that that would not be a hardship imposed on the owner because of the denial. As mentioned, it is, the comprehensive plan indicates this site is suitable for residential development as well. Jim, if you want to go through the pictures, we can get us a look at this. Not that it's shown correctly on the site plan, the actual building on the property is located kind of at an angle. It's not, perpendicular to 13th Street or parallel to Ridge Road. And so you're looking east at the building. That's the convenience store. Go to the next one. This is looking south at the building. You can see its orientation on the site, and presumably to the left-hand side of your screen, that's to the east. It would be along that part of the property that those 5 stalls would be created for the sales of vehicles. And the next one. This is looking to the southeast. These parking stalls would be the ones identified for gas station parking. Continue. This is looking to the northwest, across the intersection at some commercial property. And this is looking due north at the athletic fields. And this is looking due west at the liquor store across Ridge Road. And I can stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? Mr. Newell?
So the property is currently vacant?
No, it's a gas station and it's operating.
It is being used as gas station right now?
And convenience store, yes, sir.
Ms. Miles?
So, I'm just trying to understand. So, are they wanting to continue to use this as a gas station and add vehicle sales?
That is my understanding, yes.
And they'll be able to sell, have 5 places for vehicle sales?
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
There's no questions. I guess the question I've got is, and I'm trying to figure out why a car lot would be less desirable than a gas station with a convenience store. I'm looking at an intersection that's extremely busy. You got a liquor store on one corner. You've got pretty busy commercial caddy corner, and then basically parkland, ball fields, not going to be affected one way or the other. It's screened. So why would we determine that a car lot would be less desirable than what is operating? That's, for me, that was the hard part. I was having to come up with why that was not. Mr. Johnson.
I assume the gas station.
Gotta go to.
Yeah.
Gotta run to the podium, Joe.
He needs to be there.
Chuck, I was just going to comment on your question. They're going to continue the gas station.
Right.
So it's just adding additional use to that corner.
Right.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I may, since it was through us and me that we recommended denial, yes, it's the introduction. As the zoning code identifies this as an additional use that otherwise would be, it's not permitted by right. And so they're asking to add this activity into an already busy location at a busy intersection. And the feeling was just that this is car sales lots bring a different type of traffic and activity in there, and it just felt that it was not compatible with that location, particularly with the residences to the south and east.
Mr. Foster.
I was going to save this comment for deliberation, but this reminds me of 2 or 3 other cases that we've looked at, especially I'm thinking of that pawn shop one where the car sales was considered like an accessory use to the prime. What I am concerned about is if this flipped and became the gas sales is lost and it goes to full car sales in terms of use. So I'd appreciate some direction from staff or other commissioners who remember that other case that we had, whereas the vehicle sales was not going to be a primary activity. And I believe we even put a time limit on it too, but this is akin to just having some extra cars parked.
Yeah.
So.
I vaguely remember, but I don't really remember the details of that situation. Yeah. I wouldn't even have thought if you hadn't mentioned it, I wouldn't have remembered it, and I don't remember the details. Mr. Hartman.
My question is, if they provide for these, for the auto sales, if someone's coming to look at a car, are they gonna be having to park in the spaces that are allowed for the convenience store? Because it doesn't look like there's enough room for all that to happen. I mean, it's only 5 spaces, and if they're using it as a convenience store, I mean, that just seems like an awful small site. It looks like somebody's just using like 4 or 5 stalls there on the property to sell some cars, and it just doesn't look like there's room to do everything.
They would have to, the number of parking spaces is required based on the size of the store. And we really, and since they would be conducting the, if approved, the auto sales operation for the same building, it doesn't add any more customer parking. And of course, we require you show on the site plan where you're gonna put the vehicles that are for sale, the display vehicles. So, yeah, they'd have to share whatever parking spaces are available for the convenience store and the gas store operation, as well as car sales, if approved, yeah.
Yeah, plus where they're proposing to display them really is not very visible. I mean, you can't even see it. I mean, if you're driving around those corners, it's just kind of hidden back in there.
The lack of visibility of the cars for sale was one of the concerns we had at this location, because it is so far removed, you know, kind of tucked back in around the residential neighborhood, and really not, yes, it carries a lot of traffic on 13th and a lot of traffic on Ridge Road, but it's just not that visible of a location beyond the big sign that says gas station.
I agree with you. Thank you.
Sounds like we're getting into the area of questions that maybe we may want to ask the applicant, and then we can always come back and ask staff questions.
You've got a question here.
Mr. Nix?
It seems to me, I can't remember for sure, it used to be a Phillips station. I think they have more pumps as well. I live close to this area. I don't want to get into somebody's business, but my guess is that they probably do more business out of the convenience store than they do pumping gas. You see very few people in there. It's right across from those ball diamonds, and on the weekends, it's extremely busy corner. I'm just not certain it's really appropriate. Used car lot is appropriate for that location. My guess is that eventually they'll quit pumping gas altogether, and it'll just be a used car lot. This is what I bet would happen.
Okay. Mr. Blick, unless you got a question specifically for staff, let's have the applicant. Staff question, go ahead.
I'm looking at the site plan. Based off the square footage, what you said, now do they have to have a handicap stall and then so many other stalls? Because I don't see that on the site plan if it's handicap. One.
I'm not sure, you know, if the use is allowed, I'll have to talk with Code's office whether or not that will trigger a requirement for one of those to be a handicap stall.
Okay.
And if it is, they'll have to accommodate that on the site, which, you know, modification would mean that what they're showing now is 5 parking spaces for the existing business.
Right.
And there's not really much room to go anymore. And so they'll probably go down to a total of 4 spaces, because a handicap stall will lead up to them.
Yes, correct. That's what my question was. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to give the applicant an opportunity to make their presentation. Are they at Century 2, or are you guys at another device where you can speak on this issue?
There's no one here at Century 2 for this item.
I'm here. I'm over the phone.
Okay.
Chief Khan.
Okay, Mr. Khan, you will have 10 minutes. I assume you've been hearing our conversation. We'll let you make your presentation, and then we will ask questions of you. So you have 10 minutes.
Okay, the thing is that the car, I'm doing this gas station. I'm running this gas station for the last 16 years. I'm here for the last 16 years. I've seen ins and outs on the business. I've seen ups and downs on the business. Business is kind of on the lower side. We don't have as much traffic coming into the gas station now as used to be. We used to have 3 pumps, now we're down to 2 pumps. Just because we have reduction of the business. And the car sale idea I have because I already had a car lot on Douglas. And I just want to have like 2 or 3 spaces for the cars. And like one of the question I had for the handicap space, yes, I have no problem making one of the space for the handicap. So we have only 2 or 3 cars, and that thing is only appointment only. We're not just gonna have customers walk in and look at the cars. It's just gonna be based on appointments only. We're just gonna have advertising on the website. People can look at the car on the website. If they have any questions, they can call me, or they can ask me a question over the web or online. And when they're ready to look at the car or test drive, that's the only time they're gonna walk in. It's not gonna be a whole lot of traffic coming in. Like it's not gonna be walking people coming in and looking at the cars. It's just appointments only, and it's only in like afternoons when we have more than one help at the gas station. So gas station business is not gonna be affected. And I think it's gonna be help me out a little bit because I'm in this corner and I'm been really struggling for the last few years, and I'm just trying to add another business so I can stay in the business and get myself going to pay my bills. If you guys have any other questions, so feel free to ask me. I don't think so I have anything else to say.
Any questions for the applicant? Based on your comments, sir, would you be willing to limit the number of cars that would ever be for sale on this lot to 3?
Correct.
Correct, okay. Mr. Foster?
That seems a little low to make it even worth the effort. I'm thinking 4 or 5 to make it worth the effort.
Okay. Mr. Green, did you have okay. Any other questions for the applicant? I'm seeing none. Thank you, sir. We will now open the floor for any other speakers that are out there that would like to speak on this issue. Is there anybody at Century 2 like to speak on this issue?
No?
No? Is there anybody else from another device listening in that would like to speak on this issue? Hearing none, bring it back to the commission. Mr. Foster.
I've driven by this site for 4 decades and just kind of watched it evolve over time. And what has impressed me about it is its separation from the residential uses that when you look at it on a map or a diagram here, you kind of get a little bit concerned, but yet in reality, they're completely separated from each other. So I don't see any conflict from that standpoint. What I do have, though, is a question for staff in the sense that can we simply just limit the number of vehicles that are available for sale at any given time?
Yes, we can. Mm-hmm. We've done that in other cases before, and there is the ability to limit the space available for display vehicles for sale, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Somebody want to try to put together a motion? Mr. Foster?
I'll make a motion for approval with a limit of a maximum of 5 vehicles at any one time that could be for sale.
We have a motion. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. I got a question for staff. When we make a conditional use like this, does that run with the property or does that run with the ownership?
It runs with the property unless you put a time limit on it.
Okay. That answered my question. Any other questions?
Who seconded?
Warren.
Okay.
I did. Okay, seeing no more questions, let's do a roll call vote.
Warren?
Aye.
Green?
Aye.
Gross?
Aye.
Dexler?
Yes.
Duel?
Yes.
Lick? Aye. Nix?
No.
Foster?
Yes?
Bill Johnson? Bill?
You there, Bill?
Yeah.
Joe Johnson?
No.
Miles?
Yes.
Hartman?
No.
Passes
9-3.
9-3.
9-3. Okay.
And I'll note, we probably should get some language or indication from you all of the reasons, because the basis identified in the staff report was on the idea of a denial. So, any thoughts? I guess, Mr. Foster, you made the motion. Do you want to address some of those in some fashion for the record?
Yes, I'll look here at our findings, and I'll just look at item number 2. I feel it's definitely suitable based upon its physical separation from the surrounding residential uses, including the existing screening. Item number 3, again, the separation that is existing, I see no detrimental effect to surrounding residential uses. And I don't see a conflict with the comprehensive plan, since if you look at some of the other neighborhoods we've done, I'm thinking Ridge Road and similar areas near suburban areas promoting commercial uses at the corners. I don't see any concern for that. And I'll go back to item number 1, zoning uses and character of the neighborhood. You've got the liquor store on the west side there, which I see as compatible, and you have active office commercial in the northwest corner. So I think it is appropriate with those surrounding uses, except for the ball facility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item is agenda item 4.6, but before we go there, I'm going to make a notification. We had a call-in that a request to hear agenda item 4.7. We took that by consent, but apparently there was a technical problem with letting us know that they want to talk. So we will hear agenda item 4.7. Before we go to 4.6, do we have all the players? In 4.7, do we have the applicant? And anybody else that, I mean, that's always a problem. We make a decision and then we change it. We may lose people, and we want to make sure everybody gets a fair shot at this. Do we know if the applicant?
Certainly, Russ Avey with Baughman Company is here for 4.6 and 4.7.
Okay, good. Okay, let's go to agenda item 4.6. Philip, are you doing that one too?
Yes, good afternoon again. Philip Zievenbergen with planning staff. Item 4.6 is CUP 2017 and Zone 2015. The applicant is requesting a zone change to limited commercial and GC general commercial and establish the Harbour Isle Commercial 1 Community Unit Plan for a 67.5 acre property located north of I-235 and on the east side of North Meridian, as you can see on the map in front of you. Current zoning of the lot is a mix of SF5, SF20, and MF18. There's currently a CUP DP94, which is the Mallard Cove Community Unit Plan, that encompasses a portion of it on the very western side of the site, closest to Meridian. If this is approved, that CUP will be terminated, and this Harbour Isle Cove or Harbour Isle Commercial 1 Community Unit Plan will encompass the entire site completely and replace the other one. The text of the CUP has language regarding what uses are going to be prohibited on the site in General Provision 18. Staff recommends adding additional language for the use restrictions, such as manufactured home, monument sales, cemetery, marine facility, recreational, pawn shop, teen club, vehicle and equipment sales, animal care general, kennel boarding, breeding training facility, storage outdoor as a principal use, vehicle storage yard, asphalt and concrete plant, limited and general, recycling collection station, event center, and recreation and entertainment indoor. When platted, and I should say that this information has been discussed with the agent and the applicant. They're in agreement with staff comments on these. I'll let them speak to that. Otherwise, When platted, it will have 6 parcels, generally going from west to east. You'll have parcels 1 through 5, and then parcel 6 is where you can see about where that Sedgwick County label is. There's also an annexation going on concurrently with this case to, bring that part of the county into the city limits as part of this. So generally, parcel 6 will be what is being rezoned to general commercial. Parcels 1 through 5 are going to be will be the limited commercial parcels. The CUP contains the standard language for landscaping, lighting, drainage, cross-lot circulation. Landscaping is going to be per the landscape ordinance. A 6 to 8 foot concrete or masonry wall will be constructed along the north property line of parcels 5 and 6, where it abuts residential properties to the north. The wall will be constructed with a color pattern compatible with the commercial buildings. The text does stipulate that a 40-foot wide landscape buffer per section 4B3B can be constructed in lieu of the wall. Staff recommends additional language regarding screening along the east property line of parcel 6. Again, that's where where you can see the Sedgwick County label right now, as that will be abutting residentially zoned property to the east. If you go to the aerial map, Jim, you can see that currently it's not going to be developed residentially. It's a vehicle track of some kind. First Student parks their buses there along Seneca Street in that parking lot. I don't know if it's in conjunction with First Student. Either way, it's zoned residentially, not currently being used residential, and the stipulation in the text can give them that waiver to say the required setback and the required screening and landscaping don't have to be there unless it's developed residentially. So if it stays the way it is right now, they don't have to put it in. If it were to be developed with residential units, then the screening and the setback would have to apply. Proposed signage will be those in the LC district according to the sign code, except that flashing and rotating signs or signs with lights that create the illusion of movement, as well as portable billboards and offset signs will be prohibited. Property to the north is zone SF5 single-family residential. Property to the south is SF5 single-family residential and GC general commercial, and was recently a CUP case that we heard at the beginning of this year under, it's going to be the Harbour Isle Commercial 2 Community Unit Plan. So they're going together and they've actually worked together to make sure there's access to the site from both locations. The majority of the land to the south is undeveloped. Property to the east, as I mentioned, is SF5, but is not developed residentially. And property to the west across North Meridian is limited commercial and is developed as a church. All the public utilities are in place, but may need to be extended to serve this area. The comprehensive plan does identify this as good for new residential. However, with existing commercial zoning in the area, it is not unreasonable request for this use. Staff recommendation is to approve this, subject to the conditions that the general provisions be updated based on staff recommendation or whatever comes out of the Planning Commission here today, and the standard language of supplying staff with appropriate number of copies and filing various documents with the Register of Deeds. It was heard at DAB last night, DAB 6. They did approve it 8-0. There was discussion about how this could impact the properties to the north, and there's actually the owners of those properties. Those properties are still being developed. There's platted lots, but there's only about 15 houses up there right now. That individual actually spoke that them and individuals in the moorings, which is further north along Meridian, are actually fairly excited about the opportunity for some commercial development. They're kind of tired of driving further away to get things. In addition, there is that pond that will stay there. It's part of the drainage structure, and it actually provides somewhat of a buffer between the homes. For the majority of the development further to the east does have some of the platted lots that will buffer against it, but that's where our screening and setbacks and all that stuff come into play to help screen and buffer the commercial development from the housing. So we can run through some of the pictures. It won't take very long because it's fairly undeveloped. There's a CUP plan. This is looking northeast at the site. You can see the pond on the left-hand side. Go to the next picture. This is looking south. I'm actually standing on one of the undeveloped lots looking south across the pond towards the site itself. You can see kind of the distance across the pond there as we look to I-235. This is looking west along 40th Street. That's the church we had talked about on the west side of Meridian. And then looking to the east along 40th Street, kind of towards the site, as well as the other CUP that's nearby. And this is looking south at the 235 K96 Meridian interchange. With that, I can stand for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Saying that, thank you, Philip. Appreciate that. Russ, are you online there? If you're there, we'll give you the floor.
I believe so.
You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Russ Avey, agent for the applicant with Boffman Company. The CUP has been updated with those additional screening requirements that Philip mentioned staff requested primarily for the eastern parcel. And I'll stand for any questions or set for any questions that the commission may have.
Any questions for the agent? I'm not seeing anything. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Anybody else want to speak on this issue? Do we have anybody at Century 2 that would like to speak on this issue?
No one at Century 2.
Nobody at Century 2. Is there anybody else online from another device that would like to speak on this issue? Okay, do we have a name? Was it? Teresa, are you out there? Are you listening in? You would like to speak on this issue? Are you guys seeing anything? Is there anything maybe trying to get a hold but can't?
She's been unmuted.
She's unmuted? Okay. What was her name again?
Teresa Ulrich.
Teresa Ulrich, are you out there? Going once? Going twice? Okay. We will move on. Bring it back to the commission.
I'm gonna move to approve.
A second.
I have a motion by Ms. Miles, a second by Ms. Dexler. Any additional questions? Comments? Roll call vote, please.
Warren?
Yes?
Green?
Aye.
Rose?
Aye.
Dexler?
Yes.
Jewel?
Yes.
Lick? Aye. Nick?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Bill Johnson?
I'm not sure Bill hears you. Bill?
Bill?
Yes. Yes.
Joe Johnson?
Yes.
Miles?
Aye.
Hartman? Yes. Passes 12-0.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. You've given us some comic relief there. I like that. That's great. Okay, we're going to go back and hear agenda item 4.7. Russ is still here, so Philip, you ready to go on that one?
Yep.
Okay.
This application is very nearby. Just drive to the south side of I-235 on Meridian and you'll get there. It's an application for a rezone from SF5 to LC Limited Commercial. It's on the west side of Womer Street, which is that diagonal street that connects North Amadon with North Meridian right there by 37th Street North near the I-235 interchange. The purpose of this just autopilot, of this zone change is to rezone it to LC to include it with a larger CUP that exists to the north. The land that you see to the north that's existing LC is the Womer Plaza Shopping Center CUP DP 39. This new land, if it's approved, will become Parcel 6 and a Reserve A. The bottom triangular piece on the screen will be that Reserve A, and I believe Russ said it will be used for their retention or detention pond as part of the drainage plan. Parcel 6 will be 13.03 acres. The only thing that staff had to work with in the text of the CUP was that there was general provision 13 needed to be amended. It was the original language saying that the entire site was limited to a total of 7 buildings. When you counted up the permitted buildings on parcels 1 through 5, that equaled 7. They're going to permit 5 additional buildings on parcel 6, so general provision 13 needs to be updated to have a total of 12 buildings permitted within the entire CUP. Access to this site is only going to be off of Womer. You can see a platted cul-de-sac there with 2 entrance points. One is West 36th Street, and then one is just a kind of a spigot line that comes into the commercial area. I did speak with, I believe, the lady who wished to have this item heard. We spoke on the phone earlier today. She did submit several comments that she wanted to be heard before the board. She lives to the west on Meridian, and there were concerns about the retaining wall, and I instructed her that yes, there will be a retaining wall as part of the CUP. The standard 6 to 8 foot masonry wall, making sure that screening standards are going to be there. There was concerns about possible access to the commercial area off of Meridian, which is a residential street right there, and there will be no access points off of Meridian. It's only going to be off of Womer. Concerns about lighting, and I explained that standard lighting will be in effect, 15 feet tall cutoff luminaries pointed and directed away from residential areas. The overall site was, the original CUP was approved back in 1968. There have been a few adjustments and things up until this point, including a replatting into the Womer Second Edition, and the most recent adjustment was to align the parcel boundaries with the plat boundaries. This area is identified in the comprehensive plan as new residential. However, with the commercial development to the north, or possibility for development to the north, it's not unreasonable to add this land into the CUP. With the governing language within the CUP, which is not changing, everything in the existing CUP will govern this side as well. Detrimental impacts around to the neighboring properties with the residential units and stuff will be minimized, and staff is recommending approval, and I can stand for any questions. Or we could go through the site real quick. It is undeveloped, but you'll get a look at what we see here. So this is looking kind of northwest at the site. They're starting to excavate the area for the road. I believe this is looking due west. You can actually see there is quite a hedgerow of trees that separate the site from the residential units to the west. I think it'd be advantageous for those to remain. This is looking northwest along Womer, and looking directly north of the site at the residential units across the street. Looking southeast along Womer and what is the bridge over the big ditch.
Any questions for Philip? Seeing none. Russ, are you there?
I am. I have no further comment, but we'll set for any questions you may have.
Any questions for Russ, Mr. Foster?
Russ, do you have any idea what types of uses are being considered at this point in time? I'm trying to think how this might relate to the adjacent residential uses.
I do not. There has been, with the previous case and with several cases in and around I-235 and Meridian Corridor, we've heard over 5-10 years just the kind of the lack of restaurant development that would serve that immediate area. So obviously, the hope would be to have some local serving restaurants develop on the northern portion, which has been in existence, as Philip mentioned, since the late 60s. Whether or not there would be more office type of uses down on that south parcel or any other type of non-residential development is just, at this point, Mr. Foster, uncertain.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions for the agent? Say none. Thank you, Russ.
Thank you.
Is there
Thank
anybody
you.
at Century 2 who wishes to speak on this item?
No.
Okay.
Hello?
Yep. State your name and address for the record, please, and you have 3 minutes.
Louise Poe, POE 3621 North Union.
I've lived in this resident, Romer Sheridan addition, since 1985. I live in the big two-story farmhouse, been here since 1933. Like I talked to Mr. Phillip, I was concerned about the retaining wall. If it was going to be a block all the noise from the mall, and then the other neighbor that has a single house across the street, they have 4 children, and she was concerned about the privacy and people trying to climb the wall and come over on our side. And also the traffic is terrible here. There's only one entrance off of Walmart and 37th, and it goes down. There's like a 44 homes down at the end of the street, and a lot of traffic and speeders. And my concern, and I was talking to Mr. Phillip, and he said that he explained the retaining wall, and is there going to be a walking path?
Go right ahead, give me all your questions, and then we'll come back and try to answer them one at a time.
Okay, retaining wall and entrances to extra cars coming around, snooping around. Anyway, we're just spoiled because we like that empty field and look out across the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay on the line. We'll see if is there any questions for the speaker before we, Mr. Foster?
I just want to confirm, if there's some uses, Mr. Avey mentioned restaurants, or might be some other use that you might want to have pedestrian access to, and you mentioned walking path. Would you like to see a pedestrian connection or one of your neighbors over to this site if there are some desirable uses to get to?
No, not from Meridian. We just don't want, it's just hard to explain. Because this entrance off of 37th and Walnut is the only access road to all the houses that are back in here, and the 44 homes back in the Verde, it's called Mesa Verde, and there's 44 homes, and they all have 2 cars, and they speed up and down here. I'm like in the center, like I can look at my front window and see the mall being built.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the speaker? Thank you.
Yes, I do.
Okay, who am I speaking with? State your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Sarah Shoemaker. This is Sarah Shoemaker. I'm at 3602 North Meridian. So I'm the only house on the other side of Meridian. So my backyard, the shopping center area would be in my backyard. So as was mentioned before, I do have small children. And so my main concerns regarding this are just safety and privacy. It sounds like there's going to be a fence or a retaining wall. I think that addresses some of that need. And then it was also mentioned the tree line all around my yard. I definitely would strongly agree with that we would like to keep our tree line. Just really wanting to limit visibility into our backyard from that parking lot area or whatever might be over there. So if it'd be possible for that fence or wall to be just several feet out from the property line or from our tree line so that those trees can keep growing. I think that's a big concern that we would have.
Okay, thank you. Let me see if there's any questions for you. Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else out there listening in that would like to speak on this issue? Okay, let me give this back. Russ, I'm going to give this back to you. I heard basically 4 questions from the speakers. One of them had to do with traffic. One had to do with basically wall crashers. Might talk to us about what kind of retaining wall you're looking at. Question about a walking path. And then the last speaker talked about hoping to retain the tree line. So can you You want to come in and try to speak on any of those issues, Russ?
Yes, sir. No problem whatsoever. You know, traffic in this particular situation, we can certainly appreciate with Meridian, you know, being the sole point of access for that entire development to the west and to the southwest. We had initially, you know, when we looked at this, we had amended or platted this property a number of years ago. And at the time, you can see that common development practices with the fire department would have had us carry 36th Street up and tie it into the leg of 36th Street across Meridian to the west, where we would have had an intersection there at 36th and Meridian. We had heard comments from the neighborhood not wishing to intermix traffic or exasperate the traffic issues that are there now with commercial traffic. And so we were able to truncate 36th Street on our property in that cul-de-sac. We also, compared to the original CUP from the 60s, we had added an entrance onto Womer Street with the clear indication that we want to direct the commercial orientation to Womer and not to 37th Street. So we do have an access point that will match up to the convenience store's access point, more of a secondary opening for the project, with the primary, clearly the primary access being on the arterial. Wall crashers, you know, I'm 5'6", you know, I'm not going over that 6 to 8 foot wall. I don't really know oftentimes how much of a problem scaling a concrete, poured-in-place concrete screening wall would be. Clearly, there would be problems if we were just simply proposing to do a cedar screening fence where it would dilapidate over time. People could kick in outboards and have access that way. As far as that goes, I thought maybe Ms. Poe's comments as it relates to pedestrian access. We have done CUPs in the past, not a lot, but several, that required us to put a pedestrian gate or some sort of pedestrian access into that wall in order for the neighborhood to access the commercial area more directly. You know, it fits a lot of the city's policies to have that type of walkability. In this particular situation, I'm not sure that's what the neighborhood's asking for. We could clarify that, but you know, I think for our purposes and for the neighborhood purposes, by and large, that continuous screening wall together with the landscape buffers that are required will create that separation. So I really can't get too much, I can't get any deeper on you know, people going up and over that, the wall. But it does bring up, and we spoke about walking paths, and for the same reasons I just mentioned, I don't know if pedestrian connections is really what the neighbors to the west want. So we would have perhaps, one of the things in modern CUPs, as most of us know, is a pedestrian plan be submitted to the planning director for approval prior or during development. So we would have the ability to take a look at pedestrian access along Meridian 37th and Womer as far as sidewalk connections to make sure that although they may not directly go through the wall, that they would be able to have adequate, perhaps adequate facilities to walk up Meridian across east on 37th Street and access the development that way. That's a standard condition that we do not have currently in the CUP drawing. We'd be more than happy to consider adding that standard condition into it. As well as from time to time, we do see existing mature hedgerows being protected by, you know, in this situation, we do have a 35-foot building setback, but, you know, there would be the ability to have a comment stating that the existing tree row, you know, all consideration should be given to maintaining that existing tree row, including setting perhaps our wall back off of the property line. So I'm not sure I'm going to be able to speak to in great depth on that, just sitting here at my computer. We do not have the standard wall easement And perhaps that is something that we would be able to work with staff on prior to it going to city council. Does all that make sense?
Most of it made sense to me. How about the commission?
Okay.
Questions? Mr. Foster?
Can I speak? Can Ms. Poe speak again?
Can you hold just a moment, please? We'll give you one more opportunity. I don't normally do that, but because of the circumstances, we'll give you a chance to make a question. But Mr. Foster first.
Mr. Avey, I like your idea of the pedestrian plan to be submitted for zoning administrator review. I think that solves the issue of consideration for the neighbors there on the west. Do have a question though. Do you need some flexibility in this wall or the separation requirement to save some of those nice mature trees that are doing a really good job of buffering? Do you need some flexibility?
Well, I think as a practical matter, yes. So we have we've surveyed this as late as 2018. That survey work should indicate where those trees are. You know, I don't think our survey for this particular piece of property would have gotten into quantifying caliper size or diameter of tree trunks, but it would indicate how much of that's in meridian right-of-way, how much of that's on our property, in order to gauge, you know, is setting that fence 10 feet off of the meridian property line acceptable? Do we need 30 feet off of that property line? I simply don't know at this particular point, but perhaps we can modify the very standard requirement dealing with the submittal of a landscape plan to identify or require Baughman Company to come in or the developer to come in with a landscape plan that better defines that, provides better clarity as where those trees actually are today and what protections they may be afforded as part of the approval of the landscape plan. I'm spitballing here.
I think that's another good idea because I think that would benefit the neighborhood there. Thank you.
Before we go to the speaker online, Mr. Blick, did you have a question?
I just had a question for you, Russ. On that,
yes, sir.
On down there at the southwest corner, there's a street. It looks like Malo Street that dead ends, and it looks like it would have been a connecting that goes into if it would have been an additional residential area. You're not going to be connecting to that, are you? Into the residential on the backside, down there on the southwest corner. Okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We've had no or no discussion on doing that. It's really not up. You know, those three property owners certainly could petition. Could certainly petition the city to vacate that right of way and gain back some of that right of way for their own ownership. But that's kind of out of our pocket, out of our hands, and really kind of in no circumstance would we, even if we weren't putting a drainage system there, I don't think we would still entertain the idea of having direct access to that.
Thank you, Russ. Normally our protocol would not allow us to go back to our speakers, but because of the circumstances, ma'am, I'll give you 1 minute to either ask a question or make a comment.
Yes, sir. Louise, hello. I just wanted to make a comment. Just was the retaining wall, just wanted something that's going to buff out the noise. And I agree with Ms. Shoemaker with the trees to stay and have the back wall retaining there to keep out the traffic with people. And I'm not really concerned about a walkway into the mall. I just heard that they might put a sidewalk along here because when you try to take a walk down the street from dead end to dead end, you about get ran over because of speeders. Anyway, that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure I didn't leave anybody out. Was there anybody else by another device that wanted to speak on this issue that hasn't already spoken? Okay, hearing none, I will bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Phil real quick. I'm sorry if you already mentioned this, but it looks like DAB also heard this one last night. What was their recommendation?
Yes,
vote?
DAB 6 heard this as well last night, and they recommended approval 7-1.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions or comments? Mr. Blick?
I'd try to make a stab at it.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve.
we'll need to,
Probably,
sorry about that.
especially being a motion.
Maybe before I make a motion, I'm ask staff. With Russ, we were talking earlier about possibly allowing them on the, with the trees and stuff. Is that something that we need to speak to, or is that, I'm being able to retain some of that, or with his wall?
Yeah, my thought was to add, as Russ had indicated, not only perhaps an additional general provision addressing the pedestrian plan, that's standard in a lot of other CUPs we've seen. In this instance, maybe something along the lines, and Russ, I presume you're still online and hear us.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
The idea to put something into the effect that there be a specific plan of orientation of the wall with the desire to retain as many of the existing trees along the west property line so that the wall does not, retaining wall does not harm those trees. That the desire is to maintain the trees for screening as much as it is to build the walls for screening and buffering purposes. And if we can put that in as a general provision.
Incorporate that idea as a part of your motion.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'd like to make a motion for approval with staff's recommendation on trying to retain as many trees as possible with that retaining wall.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Miles. Any additional questions or comments? Mr. Foster?
And to include the discussion about the pedestrian plan.
And to include the discussion that is included in the motion, I got a assent from that, and that your second?
Yes.
Includes that also. Okay, any questions on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Warren,
Yes?
Green,
Aye.
Gross,
Aye.
Dexler,
Yes.
Dool,
Yes.
Blick, Nix,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Joe Johnson,
Yes.
Miles,
Aye.
Hartman.
Yes.
Passes 12-0.
Thank you. My notes say
Thank you.
our next agenda item is agenda item 4.8. Kathy, are you ready for that?
This is a request for zone change from single-family residential to two-family duplex residential, and this is located near the 9th Street and Gow case that we just, that we just heard. This was presented to DAB 6 last night. They did vote to approve it, 7-1. There were some questions about, they wanted to add a condition that the building not be more than 1 story. In this zoning district, they can have a building height of 35 feet. We are recommending a protective overlay, and we have incorporated those items. They're very similar to what was incorporated in the Zone 59 or Zone 1959 that we did on West 9th Street. And so those were agreed to by, there was discussion about that by the DAB members. So with that, the protective overlay of number 350, they would have similar, it would be 1 story facing the street. They would have trees, landscaping where they could. The original site plan that was submitted is very different than what I had spoken with Chad Abbott of Abbott Land Survey. He was going to try and get me a new site plan but didn't get it in, and he indicated that the applicant was in agreement with the conditions of the protective overlay. And I guess with that, I would answer any questions. The utilities are available, that type of thing.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Hartman?
So this site plan we have.
You need to, Rob, sorry, you gotta go to the microphone. Sit in the cheap seats, you gotta come up.
My question is, on the site plan that's in our packet, is it correct or incorrect?
No, it's not. If you will look at the site plan, you can see that the parking stalls are in front of the proposed building, that it's sitting back toward the east on the rear lot. And it also identifies dumpster enclosures. We don't allow that. What they would do is move the structure forward. They would have the off-site parking spaces required facing the house. I don't know, like I said, he hasn't given me the site plan, so I don't know if he will have garages there or not, but there will not be any parking impact to the street.
Right.
But this isn't what he's submitted, and we have put that in as a condition that a new site plan
Good question,
be
Mr. Hartman.
submitted.
Additional questions for staff? I'm seeing none. Is the agent or applicant available to speak on this issue? You have 10 minutes.
Chad was driving. He was going to try and call in, but I don't know that he's called in.
Okay, you're not there, Chad? Okay, we'll move on. Is there anybody at Century 2 who wishes to speak on this issue?
Yes, we have one speaker.
Okay. State your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Joe Bendowski at 793 North Kesler, Wichita. And I do have a couple of questions to you. The setback on the home, is that easement that you have, is that a 30-foot easement back from the street? Are you answering?
Say that again, please.
Oh, I gotta wait. Okay, I'm concerned if the house or the building will be the same setback as the rest of the buildings to conform to the rest of the street. The other thing is all the other houses along that street, except for, I do believe one that is a business down at the end towards Central, has a lawn, and I am concerned that it may look like a concrete driveway instead of a resident. And I think parking may be I know that you've done some houses or some duplexes that you park in the back, so that might solve the parking problem, and if there's no garage. The other thing is, I know that rentals do have less control on neighborhoods. I certainly would want an improvement on the neighborhood if this is built, so I'm not against it necessarily. And then I am also concerned that if it is such a small lot that there is no yard for children to play, and in that too. And then I certainly would, like I said, I hope to improve the neighborhood. I don't know whether it has a basement and whether there's storage available to the individuals who rent that and all. So, but I would like to see garages, but I don't know whether that's possible, whether that's feasible. But I would hope that it would conform to the general. I guess unlike the other houses. So I don't think I have anything much more. Just the front yard and just all that. I guess that's all my concern. I live right across the street from it, and I always welcome neighbors, but and always welcome anybody that wants to make a profit or whatever. I was also concerned maybe if they were to keep it a single-family dwelling, that if they might want to put it up for sale, and if that would be a possibility too, if it becomes too difficult for them to build a duplex.
Okay, sir, your time has expired. If you can hold there just for a moment, let me see if I have any questions for you. Any questions for the speaker?
Just a sec. Is that?
I think Siri butted in there. So. Okay. Hold on. I see no questions for the speaker. Thank you, sir. We've got some of your questions, and we'll try to deal with that. Let me see if there's anybody else wish to speak. Is there anybody else there?
Thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate that.
There at Century 2 wish to speak on this item?
No one else.
No one else there. Is there anybody from another device online that would like to speak on this item?
Siri has a question.
Okay, is Mr. Abbott, Chad, are you did you catch up with us? Okay, staff, you want to try to answer any of those questions? We had a setback concern about whether or not this is going to be set back
Yes.
with the neighborhood, parking. Anything else, other questions the speaker had? Anything that you can add to that?
Okay, excuse me, as I said, the applicant has agreed to the conditions of the protective overlay, and one of those is that it does meet the building setback. You can have hard surface parking in front that would have approaches, but it's my understanding there is intent to have a front yard and potentially some trees between the duplex drive or the unit drives that are available. It has architectural controls so that it's got similar materials with the exterior materials that would be appropriate for the surrounding residences. The roof design would be, most of those are gabled hip roofs, so it would match that. I haven't seen any, they haven't submitted any elevation drawings, but then again, we don't require that as part of a zone change, but I'm sure that, I know that Chad's gonna submit a new site plan, and we can discuss about the materials because that is in there, in the protective overlay language. And this protective overlay goes with the land and is not a suggestion, it's a requirement in order for them to get a building permit. So if they change anything in the future about this protective overlay, they have to come back through this process.
Let me ask the commissioners, are you guys comfortable going forward without having anything from the applicant? Or do you have any questions that you need that only the applicant can answer? Mr. Green?
I don't have a problem because I am confident knowing that staff is going to be reviewing the site plan and will make sure that it adheres to the requirements that have been presented to us concerning the protective overlay. So I don't have a problem.
Okay.
I do have a suggestion though.
Okay.
That since we're doing these meetings in this fashion, Chad was attempting to call in, if we could ensure that we have contact information for applicants when they do call in, and then they're going to try to call in again, we need to be able to communicate with them at the time that we need them, if they're not going to be office-based or computer-based, if it's a phone call. So.
Mr. Chairman, if I could also interject, there was a question about setbacks, and I do want to clarify an issue. As shown on the draft site plan, they're showing the 25-foot setback that is required by the zoning code. There is also the provision in the code that allows them to have the ability to match up with the existing building line, even if it's less than 25 feet off the property line. That's called an established building setback line, and they would have a right to match that. So the earlier, the gentleman from across the street who kind of implied, well, can they build the building line? The answer is yes, even if it doesn't meet the 25 feet. And that's standard language in most zoning codes, and it is in ours in the city of Wichita as well. So whatever the line is that the existing homes have established, that's the building line.
Okay. Mr. Foster?
I want to thank staff for working on that protective overlay. I think that's consistent with the walkability plan and is a good approach for these projects. I do have two questions though. One is on the diagram we're looking at here, it refers to a 30-foot exception out there on Kesler. My question, is that 30-foot right away? Or is that going to be a dedication? What does that mean?
Well, the right-of-way measurement on Kesler is, let's see, where is that? 60 feet, and it's a 2-lane, so it's probably does refer to
The right-of-way?
the right-of-way.
Second question is, in the protective overlay, item 1A on the garages, the smallest, I'm assuming we're looking at two-car garages.
That would be my understanding, although they could elect to do just one car, because this lot is 70 feet wide. So if they can fit 2 cars, a 2-car garage in there maybe, but the applicant hasn't indicated that to me, because he'd have to have 6 feet on either side for interior side setback, so.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
The last time, the smallest one I've measured was 22 feet 9 inches for a double, so that gives you 45 feet already if you're trying to get a couple of those garages there, so it'll be interesting to see what the site plan is. Thank you.
Okay, additional questions for staff? We have a motion?
Move for approval, subject to staff comments.
Have a motion by Mr. Hartman, is there a second?
Just a minute. Second, but
Second by Mr. Dillon. Mr. Dillon.
also, that includes a new site plan.
Yes.
Yes.
Staff,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Approved site plan. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, take a roll call vote.
Warren?
Aye.
Green?
Aye.
Gross?
Aye.
Dexler?
Yes.
Dool?
Yes.
Blick? Nix?
Yep.
Foster?
Aye.
Bill Johnson?
Yes.
Joe Johnson?
Left.
Oh, he left? No. Miles?
Aye.
Hartman?
That make it 11,
11.
11-0 approved. Okay. That one was 4.8, so we're at 4.9, and we have 4.12 to go after that, so we've got 2 to go. Oh, yep.
Good afternoon, Philip Ziebenbergen on behalf of Matt Williams with planning staff. Zone 2020-17, the applicant is seeking to change the zoning classification on the site from SF5 single-family residential to OW office warehouse in order to accommodate the establishment of an office warehouse complex located on a quarter mile north of East 55th Street South and on the west side of South Hydraulic Avenue. The office warehouse zoning district will allow both office and warehouse uses. Permitted uses within OW are reasonable for the property at this location, which has good access and is near other property zone limited commercial and LI limited industrial. Further, the subject property is accessible to the greater transportation system of I-35 and I-135 going north of Hydraulic to 47th Street, then west of those roadways. The surrounding neighborhood has a mixture of uses and zoning patterns. The properties to the north are zoned SF5 single-family residential and are developed with single-family homes. The properties to the east across Hydraulic are zoned SF5 single-family residential and MH manufactured housing and are developed with single-family homes and manufactured homes. The property to the south is zone PUD, which is PUD 32, and is developed as a laundromat and a vacant greenhouse. The PUD allowed a mixture of uses including commercial and office warehouse, as well as a former greenhouse. The normal municipal services are available on property. The property has access to South Hydraulic, which is a paved 5-lane arterial road. The comprehensive plan identifies this area as residential. However, given the existence of commercial properties in the area as well as the PUD, and the uses within the PUD, was determined that the use was not unreasonable. The land could be developed with a single-family residence as it is currently zoned. Obviously, the idea is that if it were to be denied, it would be determined as an economic hardship on the property owner. The proposed zone change will not detrimentally affect the nearby properties with the compatibility setbacks as well as other screening and buffering requirements that are required when commercial properties abut residential properties. Then it should not have detrimental impacts on the surrounding area. If you want to go to the site plan, you can see a general layout that they have there with several buildings. Looks like there's 3 of them in addition to their parking and dumpster enclosures. You can see there's a drainage utility easement on the north portion. This is just a site plan. Doesn't necessarily require screening and buffering, but that would have to be included on the final site plan. We can go through the pictures on the site. This is looking northwest along the site. You can see it's undeveloped. It's looking north along the site, again undeveloped. You can see the houses nearby. This is looking west at the site. There's a decent trees along Hydraulic on the property. This is looking across the street towards the manufactured home park that's there. This is looking south at the PUD, which was the laundromat and vacant greenhouse. And I can stand for any staff questions.
Do we have any questions for staff
Just
on
real
this?
quick, Phil, the DAB 3 saw this or looked at it on June 3rd. What was there?
They voted 501, I believe. Ms. Miles is still on the board. And are you the abstention?
Yes.
Yeah, she's the abstention.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We could have the agent or applicant.
Mark Savoy,
And you have-
agent for the
you have
applicant.
10 minutes.
The only one comment I have is that site plan does reflect a note saying that there will be a 8-foot wall, cedar privacy fence, and with landscaping on the inside of our property along any properties that adjoin single family. So that will be a part of, that is a part of the plan here, so.
Okay, Mr. Hartman?
Hey, Mark, did you see the zoning map that was included here? Because on the south of the property, it shows a little strip of residential instead of commercial on, between your property and the property to the south. Do you know what's going on there?
I don't believe that's,
Right here.
second.
See that white strip?
Right, this is his property.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Take that back. I was looking at the property to the south of yours.
Oh, yes. I thought I was adjacent to the CUP to the south.
PD.
And so, our south line is adjacent to that PUD that's basically industrial warehouse type mixture of uses.
Any additional questions for Mr. Savoy? Mrs. Miles?
Can you help me understand, in regards to the warehouse, what exactly might be housed in the warehouse?
This is the target audience for these is like a small electrician operation, where you'd have your office in the front and then an area to store some of your product in the back. Just, not necessarily products that's for sale, but products that you use on a job site. Could be a plumber, could be an electrician, just situations like that. Businesses that need a little bit of storage, i.e. the warehouse thought behind that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Thank you, Mr. Savoy. We will see. Is there anybody at Century 2 wish to speak on this issue?
No one at Century 2.
No one at Century 2. Is there anybody on another device listening in that would like to speak on this issue? Hearing none, I will bring it back to the commission.
Move for approval, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Mr. Hartman. Second by Mr. Foster. Any additional questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Warren,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Gross,
Aye.
Dexler,
Yes.
Dool,
Yes.
Blick, Nix,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Miles,
No.
Hartman.
Yes.
Passes 10-1.
10-1. Moving us now to agenda item 4.12, county zoning change SF20 to allow for creation of lots less than 2 acres. Kathy.
This is another, very similar to what was presented last week in the Derby area of influence. This is not in any area of influence. It's a 9-acre tract that the applicant wants to, excuse me, wants to plat into smaller, like 1 to 2 acre lots. So he's requesting the SF5 zoning. Kirk Miller.
SF20.
I'm sorry, thank you, SF20. I'm like, Philip, my brain just. So SF20 zoning, would you go through the slides for me, Jim? It's it's pretty wide open out there. Go ahead. This is the proposed layout. I understand they're in the process of platting, so I don't know exactly where that is. So 6 lots. This is looking, I'm at the southeast corner of the lot looking northwest there, so it's open. There is a structure there. It's not being lived in. I don't know, I couldn't tell if those outbuildings had storage or anything like that. Next one. This is looking west at the site. From the southeast corner, there's a nice row of trees there. And this is looking northwest. As I said, a lot of this area is undeveloped. I don't know if it's ag land. It's not being crop farmed. Next. This is looking east on 39th Street or MacArthur Road. And again, that is, I'm at the intersection of 39th and 135th. And this, again, you can see the solid line of trees, and the site is on the left. This is at the northeast corner. They have, it was pretty evident with all of the tree lines and whatever, that the neighbors along 39th Street would have some semblance of privacy, noise reduction, that type of thing. Next, this is the property on the south, on the south side of the subject property, and again, what you see on the right side is that row of trees that separates it from the 9 acres. This will have, again, this is east looking along the south side of 39th Street. And this is going to be a development that has the enhanced alternative sewer. They are in a water district, and the applicant has been in contact with the water district, and they can provide the service. This is, East 39th Street is an arterial. It has 110 foot of right-of-way. It is gravel at this time. And then 135th Street is 100 feet of right-of-way that is gravel at this time. So it's recommended that this be approved and that the urban fringe development requirements set forth be followed. I've had one phone call that doesn't want the development there, and I think they might be on the camera. So with that, I'll answer any questions from the commissioners.
Questions for Kathy? I'm saying none. Thank you. Agent or applicant, are you online where you can speak to us? And if so, you have 10 minutes.
Kirk Miller, K. Miller Engineering. I'm the agent for the applicant. And this is some of what we had last week. We're looking at 1 acre minimum lots because of the alternative sewer. And so we figured at most we can get 6 lots. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Kirk? Seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anybody at Century 2 who wishes to speak on this item?
I have a question.
Just a moment, please. We'll get to you. Anybody at Century 2? Okay.
No one else at Century 2.
Okay, Ms. Fraser, you next in line. You get 3 minutes, please.
Name and address.
Thank you. My name is Sherry Fraser. My address is 13321 East 41st South, and my property is 10 acres. And I wanted to state that most of these properties out here are on 3 to 20 acres per family. And we moved to the country to alleviate and escape houses that are on 1 acre lots. We have farm animals and we enjoy those, and we don't care to live in a housing district, which is why we moved out here. And so several of the neighbors that I've visited with are very opposed to this because it's going to cause us to lose our privacy of living in the country. There'll be added noise. There'll be added traffic for that many homes. And so we oppose it because of those reasons. And also, one of my neighbors is here with me, and she has a question regarding the rural water. She already has low water pressure, and we're wondering what that is going to do to our water pressures. And do you need to speak with her, or?
We'll take her separately.
Okay. And that's my concern, is loss of privacy. This is the country life for horses and cows and all kinds of livestock. It's what we enjoy. We love to hear the birds singing, and we don't care to live in an area that has homes on 1 acres.
Okay, let me see if there's any
1 to
questions.
2 acres.
Any questions
And
for the speaker?
that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Since you have
Thank
your
you.
neighbor there, if she would state her name and address for the record, she will have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Mary Stoughton,
And my address is 4115 South 135th Street East. And I'm about a block south of the corner of 39th Street and 135th. I've lived here since this residence since the spring of '77. And when we first moved here, for quite some time, we had very good water pressure and no problem at all. And as they added these housing, new homes and the new housing area north of 39th, I've lost a lot of my water pressure, and it makes it hard to know when I can do washing and all of the things that we do at our homes. And I'm just concerned that I have asked the water district about that, told them that about the pressure, and they don't seem to be real concerned about it. This has been a while back, and nothing's been done. It gets worse. And if my home is like that, I don't know how many other people in the area are having this particular problem. But adding new homes, I can't see where that's going to help anyone. And the people living in these new homes that you're talking about building, they're liable to not have much in the way of water pressure. And that's just really all I wanted to say, that it means a lot to have a good water at our homes. And thank you.
Thank you. Let me see if there's any questions. Any questions for the speaker? Mr. Foster?
Ma'am, do you happen to know what the acreage is of your parcel of land?
It's about 2.85 acres.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions
Thank
for the
you.
speaker? Okay, so
not
no more
for me.
questions. Is there anybody else out there that would like to speak on this issue?
Yes, my name is Dennis Morris.
Mr. Morris,
and
you have 3 minutes.
I live at 13411 East 39th, and I'm against this zoning change, mainly because of the reasons the ladies before me have said. But I also have a question as regards to the zoning change. Will it just be for this plot only? Will the rest of the zoning remain as it is now?
We'll hang on to that question. Is there anything else that you would like to ask, or any other comments you want to make?
The other comment I would like to make is that Highway 1, or the Street 135 is, I don't know, they said the right of way was quite a bit less than what it actually is. But it's barely, it's very difficult for 2 cars to pass on that little road without one of them going in the ditch. My big concern about that is right now the neighbors get along well and don't have a problem driving on it, but you get more cars in there, and the big problem I have is my grandchildren walk on that road to meet the bus on 39th during every school day. And you put more traffic on that road, it's going to be more hazardous for them to do their job. And I would just like to ask you to consider these situations and try to get them to, or try not to change this zoning. You know, having a one house on the acreage would not be a problem, but if you have 6 to 9 houses on that lot, it's going to be a problem. And one of the problems, I've lived out here 45 years, and one of the problems I've run into is the fact that the soil is real heavy clay and will not dissipate the moisture in the lagoon or into the lateral line system. That's why we've all gone to lagoons. So I really have a concern that their new, a pretty improved system is not going to work in this area because of the soil. And that's pretty much all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Actually,
questions
I
for the
need to
speaker?
talk.
Mr. Foster?
Same question as last time. Sir, do you know the acreage of your property?
Yes, it's a short 10, they call it. It's got the easement off the front and the back. Mine's the third lot over from this development. There's one in between him and I.
So 10 acres.
And I'm here, my computer. I'd like to talk too.
Okay, just a moment.
Thank you.
Any other
he
questions?
asked-
Other questions for the speaker? Okay, ma'am?
Yes.
He
You
did
have,
a question about zoning.
oh, go ahead.
The gentleman, and I think staff needs to help on
Yes.
that, he did have a question related to would the zoning change, and I'll let staff, I think, should handle that question.
The zone change that from rural residential to SF 20 is only the property that's outlined in red, black on this map, if you can see this map. And that's about 9 acres. And according to, and the number of lots that would be developed in this for housing is 6. So it wouldn't be 6 to 9 houses. It is 6 platted lots.
Six max.
Yes, up to 6 max.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, you'll identify, if this is approved and platted, the plat will come to you as planning commission, and you'll see how many lots are actually proposed at that time.
Okay. Sir, did you have another?
Okay.
Do you have another person there at your residence that wanted to speak on this issue?
Yes, I do.
Yes, Amy Smith, 13419 East 39th Street South. My property is directly west of this property. It lines up with. I just had a lot of the same things that Sherry did about the noise and the commotion and the dirt roads, and I have cattle. And it's butted right up against this housing development.
And others.
And other, yeah.
Chickens and
Yeah, we have a lot of animals around here and horses.
Chickens.
We just enjoy our peace and quiet, and we just don't see how this is.
it's not going to help us.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see if there are any questions for the speaker? Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else out there wish to speak on this issue? There was somebody else I thought was trying to get on. Is that it? Okay, bring it back to the, go back to the agent. You have 2 minutes for rebuttal. Kirk, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I would like to point out that the sewage has to be approved by the county, the system that's done. So if you can't get 6 lots on there because the soil doesn't perk properly for the alternative sewer, then you won't have 6 lots. They'll make sure that you don't exceed as many lots as would work. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Kirk, what about the?
You want to comment about the water pressure? I know that's not normally something we talk about because it's a private public system.
Well, I guess everybody probably needs to get with rural water district, and if there's a pressure issue, they need to get it worked out with them.
Okay.
It sounds like it might be an existing situation, but it's, the rural water district's not going to put anybody on there that they can't serve. They have a limit on how many they can serve.
Any other questions for Kirk? Seeing that, I'll bring it back to the commission. Mr. Foster.
I'm going to go at this, normally we look at things and we talk about urbanization and density. However, as you study the parcel plan that we have in front of us, I'm not seeing density here. I'm seeing large parcels. I'm seeing the surrounding character as large parcels. And if we look at our findings, I see detriment to the nearby properties. And I feel it'd be more in conformance with our plan to stay with the rural character. So I'm gonna make a motion that we approve this, but yet it would need to meet the 2-acre minimum for the lot size, which would be allowed.
Okay, so your motion is to approve 2 acres.
Correct.
Actually,
Or if I gotta go the other way and say
Yeah,
disapprove,
present zoning is rural residential, which has a 2-acre minimum requirement. So, the request is to go to SF 20, which would allow smaller lots, theoretically by the zoning code down to 20,000 square feet, but the sanitation code sets a 1-acre minimum because of the on-site sewer system issue. That's what the case is about.
then I would just make the motion to disapprove the request for the
Okay,
zoning.
we have a motion by Mr. Foster to disapprove and a second by Ms. Drexler. Ms. Gross?
We're worried about the urbanization in that area. I own property that has a similar situation like this. I have 108 acres. On a corner of it, someone has 1 acre. And then directly to the east of me, there is a residential area. And I've never had any issues, or the neighbors to the west of me that have larger plots have not had any issues with that one plot that has multiple families living in that area. And I haven't noticed any extra noise, any extra traffic. And so I can kind of relate to the developer of this corner, and I don't see how it would hurt.
Can I make a substitute?
I don't know, because we can't substitute based on how many.
Now, you can make a substitute motion to approve as presented.
Okay, I motion, or the approve as presented.
We have a substitute
Let's-
motion to approve, a second by Mr. Dool. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll roll call vote on the substitute
Okay.
motion to approve as presented.
Wait.
Okay, I want to double check here. Shane, you moved a substitute to approve.
According to
Okay,
staff suggestions.
and Bob seconded that. Okay.
We'll have a roll call vote on the substitute motion.
Okay, Warren,
Aye?
Green,
Aye.
Gross,
Aye.
Dexler,
No.
Dool,
Yes.
Blick, Nix,
Aye.
Foster,
No.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Miles,
No.
Hartman. Substitute motion passes 8-3.
Thank you all. Okay. That one was 412, correct? So that concludes our regular MAPC. We do have a BZA. So do we need to, can I close the meeting out completely, or do I recess it? We can close it?
I would recess so that when you adjourn, you're adjourning as planning commission.
Okay. We'll recess the planning commission, go to open the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. We do have to approve 2 sets of meetings, February 20th and May 21st. I don't have a record on here. Let's see here as to who was present.
I was not at the February 20th meeting, so
Let's see here.
I will abstain from that one.
Okay. I'm looking at the February 20th on here. Okay, if you don't see your name on there on the present, is there anybody else here that wasn't there? Somebody want to make a motion on the,
Second.
is that for both or just the meeting on the 20th? Are they the same?
Well, I was not at the meeting on the 20th, so I.
Yeah, we have to take them separately.
Let's take them separately. This will be the February 20th meeting. We have a motion by Mr. Blick, a second by Ms. Miles. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously with 1 abstention. May 21st. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Green, Second by Mr. Dexler. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimous. BZA 20-00015, city variance to allow a roof-mounted sign. Philip?
Yes, this application is a variance request to allow a roof-mounted sign in addition to increasing the total square footage of a sign that's permitted in the central business district zoning district according to the sign code. The property is located at 320 South Market, which is generally located on the east side of Market and on the north side of East Meridian, or East Waterman, I apologize. Fidelity Bank is the applicant. They are currently constructing a 4-story parking structure on the site. The bank would like to construct a roof-mounted sign with their name on the south side of the building in order to be visible from elevated Kellogg Freeway to the south. The sign code states the following signs permitted in the CBD zoning district: illuminated on-site ground and pole signs, illuminated building signs, provided that the signs shall be limited to a total area of 20% of the building elevation, but no individual sign will exceed 400 square feet in area. The roof signs, except for balloon signs, shall not be permitted except by variance by the Board of Zoning Appeals, and balloon signs are permitted by section 2404-235. So item 3 of the code specifically prohibits roof-mounted signs unless approved by a variance. Item 2 limits the size of a sign to 20% of the building elevation or to 400 square feet, whichever one applies. The proposed sign will measure approximately 16 feet by 47.5, which would give you approximately 770 square feet in area. That's if you draw a box around the furthest extent of the individual letters, knowing it's not going to be a completely opaque sign. If you were to just take the square footage of the actual letters themselves, it's only about 545 square feet, which exceeds the standard by 145 square feet instead. If you would take the fullest extent of the dimensions of the sign, it is only about 9% of the south elevation, according to Fidelity Bank. They are requesting this variance for the roof-mounted sign based on the architectural design and building materials that they will be applying to the face of the parking structure is not suitable to hang a sign. The desired visibility from as well as the desired visibility from Kellogg, and we'll get into a little bit more of those details in just a little bit. The roof-mounted signs are not common in Wichita. There are a couple examples of them, primarily the Commodore and the Drury Plaza Broadview Hotel sign. I do have a couple pictures of those at the end of the presentation that you can see if you're not familiar with them. Most recently, though, a variance was approved in 2018 for the River Vista Apartments located at McLean and Douglas. However, they have not constructed that sign to the present date yet. Given the proximity of these signs to the location that this is going to be, the development, as well as the development being intended to be fairly prominent in downtown, staff feels that the request is warranted and should be approved. The zoning around this site on the north, all sides are central business district. To the north is a surface parking lot across English Street. To the south is office space and a showroom. To the east is apartments as well as a surface parking lot and office space. And to the west is office space and a surface parking lot. Regarding the uniqueness of this application, the applicant states that their building is unique and requires a roof-mounted sign. They stated that after consultation with the bank as well and its general contractor, they shared concerns about regarding the building's south fascia and the suitability for a large wall-mounted sign. The underlying structure is insufficient for public safety and long-term sustainability. While aesthetically pleasing with its see-through functionality, this elevation is comprised largely of a mesh screen that denies the potential to install an appropriately sized display for a tower of this size. They also say that the rooftop installation can easily resolve the issue by allowing the contractor to fabricate and install a custom designed support structure to guarantee the safety and the longevity of the sign on top of the building. Regarding the variance for the additional square footage, they state that the need for the larger size is to ensure instant identification for safe wayfinding. This is especially important for traffic preparing to exit Kellogg before continuing onto a new major destination of 500 plus garage spaces. For viewing from street level, the 10-story height of a rooftop display requires a size exceeding the standard allowance. Furthermore, there is a need for visibility from the major thoroughfare located more than 2,000 feet away, that being Kellogg. Staff wanted to make a note that that 2,000-foot distance is measured from the location of the sign to the exit ramps on Kellogg. If you were to draw a line straight south, it's only about 800 feet. So I did the calculation. If you were to be driving on Kellogg from the east or from the west, they're measuring the visibility from when you have to see the sign in order to exit Kellogg, not as you're driving on Kellogg looking north. So that's the uniqueness, that's their statement there. Regarding adversely affecting adjacent property owners, the sign will be positioned to face other commercial properties and away from the residential areas. The Drury Plaza Broadview, which is northwest of this property, has been allowed a rooftop sign, as well as the recent variance for the River Vista apartments as well. So this request is not necessarily unique or a one-of-a-kind request. Regarding hardship, the applicant stated that they feel the sign code restrictions constitute hardship. Allowing a rooftop installation would give the best exposure to Kellogg traffic for the south elevation of the new parking structure, and moving the display onto the south elevation fascia of the structure is not a viable option based on the architectural design that we previously discussed. It is a logo type sign and needs to be large enough in order to clearly read the sign from Kellogg, for which the sign is intended to target. According to industry standards, at this distance, letter height should be at least 48 inches in height. The smaller bank copy, so it's going to say Fidelity and then bank, so the smaller bank copy on the proposed sign is designed at 43.5 inches. Conformity to code restrictions would decrease the legibility of the entire sign message. The applicant states that the granting of the variance will not have any negative impacts on public health, safety, and morals. In fact, the applicant feels that granting of this variance will only create a positive effect on the community and the development of downtown. This type of sign will be a signature statement to the downtown area and can prove to be an iconic piece of ongoing development in the Wichita cityscape. And finally, with the spirit and intent, the applicant states that granting the variance desired will not be in opposition to the general spirit and intent of the code. The overall size of the proposed sign is only 9% of the south elevation, which is well under the 20% allowed in the central business district zoning classification. The sign will be fabricated, engineered, and installed with safety for all in mind. Staff is recommending that this variance be granted, subject to the following conditions: that the sign be constructed in substantial conformance with the approved site plan and conceptual images, as well as a sign permit being obtained, and if needed, any building permits will need to be obtained from MAPC for the construction of the support structure or the sign itself. There are a few pictures we can go through. Here's the conceptual image that you can see of just basically having more of a lattice work support structure, supporting the letters of that say Fidelity Bank. You can move to the next one. This is looking northwest at the current construction. They've got about 3 stories up, and they're working on the 4th one as we speak. This is looking northeast at the site. Going off to the right is Waterman, going off to the left is Market. This is looking north along Market. You can actually see their current structure there with their typeface. It's going to be similar to that, just bigger. Looking south, you can see some of the commercial properties south as you look down Market towards Kellogg. And this is looking to the southeast at the commercial properties that are there as well. Last 2 I have here is an example, the examples of roof-mounted signs. Here's the Commodore, which is located at about on Broadway near Central, and this is the Drury Plaza Broadview Hotel at Douglas and Waco. I can stand for any questions.
Mr. Blick?
I just had a question on, and you answered a couple of them actually, was the pass-through. I think especially with Kansas wind and stuff, instead of a solid up on top of a building, and then it's internally illuminated with inside. I just had a question, was structurally wise, without seeing an F line across, you know, they pretty much, do you guys follow back up on making sure that they're safe and all that stuff, as in like high winds, especially coming straight out the south, being a south facing, because I noticed all the other ones are all angled north and south.
I would say that's probably something more for MAPCD of inspecting to make sure any roof-mounted structure is, you know, properly installed and structurally sound.
There are detailed construction plans required to be submitted to get a sign permit, and the MABC would evaluate that for, take into account wind, like we have rarely around here, I know, so.
Mr. Foster?
I would suggest a change to condition number 2. Sign permit shall be obtained and shall be, building permit shall be obtained from MABCD rather than saying if needed. I think it's a given the concerns Mr. Blick has raised.
You want to state that again?
Just make it so it is a requirement to go to MABCD for structural considerations.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I just, because River Vista was mentioned several times as a recent approval, do you happen to know the history on how much that exceeded the CBD?
Theirs did not exceed the square footage. Theirs was just a variance to permit a roof-mounted sign.
Roof-mounted, okay, thank you.
I believe their sign was only going to be, I think it was less than 300 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for staff? Seeing none, is there anybody from the agent that would like to speak, that would like to add on staff?
Yes, President, for Fidelity Bank, Chuck Carson. I'd like to mention that the structure that the sign would be mounted to.
Okay, Mr. Carson,
I'm sorry?
You're breaking up. I don't know if you speak into the microphone a little better, or we're having a hard time hearing you.
Try to get a little closer here. The structure that the sign is going to be mounted on, we have already secured engineered drawings based on, I believe, 120 mile per hour winds. And I believe that those documents were submitted with the application, but would be happy to submit those with any type of building permit, sign permit, you know, that's required. I also want to mention that the structure that the sign will.
Okay, we're not able to make out what you're saying at all now. We're picking up a word every now and then, but now I just.
Okay, I do have the architecture online.
This is Daniel Ginch with Sheldon Architecture. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, great. What Chuck was pointing out, what he was about to say was the sign is on the south end of the building, but it is 46 feet set back from the property line, north of the property line. So it's not, the elevation's deceiving. It's not directly above the south elevation. It's actually recessed back 46 feet. The top of the sign's 90 feet above street level. And the primary objective is that this sign is visible from Kellogg, similar actually in distance and scale to the Interest Bank Arena sign from Kellogg. It would still be visible northbound on Market, but from 2 blocks away and from 1 block away. But once you get up close to Waterman, you don't even see the sign.
Okay.
We also worked with the structural engineer, and the assumption that we've pre-engineered into our roof that supports this is that as if that sign were solid, 770 square feet of opaque solid sign. We don't intend, the design does not include a solid sign, but the engineering for the wind load took into account as if it were solid. So we over-engineered the roof structure.
Okay.
I can answer any additional questions if needed.
Any additional questions for the agent? Yeah, Mr. Green.
And I think we did pick up the fact that it can withstand winds of up to 120 miles per hour. Is that what Mr. Carson said?
That's correct. That's what Mr. Carson said.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else out there that would like to speak on this issue? Anything, anybody at Century 2?
Nobody at Century 2.
Okay, anybody else from another device wish to speak on this issue? Hearing none, I bring it back to the commission. Motion by Mr. Hartman, second by Ms. Miles. Any additional questions or comments?
I just wanted to ask, Mr. Foster had mentioned the condition number 2, requiring a building permit, if we wanted to add that in the motion.
Is that incorporated into the motion?
It can be, yeah.
Okay,
It's required anyway, so.
we will consider it part of the motion and the second. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Warren,
Aye.
Screen.
Aye.
Okay, I'm gonna go around the room because I don't have my, Ms. Nix, Ms. Duckler,
Yes.
Ms. Gross,
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Ms. Miles,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Ms. Blick, Ms. Hartman,
Bill Johnson.
Bill Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, unanimous. And there's that. We call in the meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'll bring us back to the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.